How are you?
Good. How you doing? Really looking forward to talking with you.
I'm honored and blessed. My mom just had this motherly intuition that she couldn't let go of, that something was wrong. Born healthy, little peanut. So she went to a couple different hospitals over a few months' time and just kept saying something's wrong, something's not right, something doesn't feel right. And everyone was kind of just looking at her like, you're nuts. And she took herself to the library. She just kept doing research and kept going back and finally went back to an original hospital where they did, in fact, diagnose me with Crouzon syndrome. And it was really rare, in 1980 for studies had been out, but not much. And at the time,
Hmm.
even technology is so different. So we were lucky enough to be in Chicago that there was a team of doctors, which was also rare that doctors would form as a team and collaborate. And so, unfortunately, the timing and everything else, the surgery didn't go as planned. And if you fast forward to now, a lot of surgeries would involve a halo effect where they would put,
Hmm.
just the metal rods around it and slowly retract the bones to allow growth. But at the time, it was supposed to be done in three stages, Lefort 1, 2, and 3. However, his ego was, getting the best of him, and there was supposed to be a huge news broadcast, as this would be the first surgery performed. And what he did was similar to any other surgery for Crouzon patients, is they cut ear to ear, and what he did was he pulled my entire face forward. And
Whoa.
as he did that, like a hockey mask, like a rubber band, it just slungshot back. And it just broke almost every bone in my face.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my
And what he
gosh.
did, though, next was he sewed me up and told my parents everything went smoothly. And by the grace of God, let me flip back a little bit. There was a woman, almost like a grief counselor, who was introduced to my parents because, having a child born with a disability, a facial difference, they give you a counselor to talk about, the progress and, how to handle and how to feel. And this woman was my angel. So she was able to actually sit in on the surgery. So God bless her soul to actually witness all that. But because she was there, she did something that most people are afraid to do, which is call out a doctor, because you're most
Yeah.
likely going to lose your job, which she did.
Yeah. To
But she
challenge it,
went,
right? Some.
yeah, so she went to my mom and said, I can't tell you much, but ask a lot of questions. And by doing so, we were lucky enough to know that there was another doctor at another hospital nearby who does reconstructive facial surgeries. And again, by the grace of God, they were able to get me there. And there they found out that I had staph infection, amongst other infections, growing in my face, so I was dying pretty rapidly.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
was eating away all the broken bones that they could have utilized to help re- refix everything. But unfortunately, it ate away a lot of the bones. So, being a 2 year old, they didn't have a lot to work with. So, a lot of
And this
titanium.
happened when you were two?
Yes. So, 1982. So, a lot of the
When you're
bones were.
and that's why, I mean, your bones are fragile, right? And so when you're doing that kind of an
Well, I
operation,
mean, a lot of the bones
they,
in my face are mostly plates and screws.
oh, you mean
So,
right now? Well,
yeah.
I mean earlier, the reason why that could
Yeah, I
break.
mean, children,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
good thing, the blessing is children bounce back fast, and I did. You're resilient. You're ready to just live life and not a care in the world, But
Yeah.
yeah, so I had to end up going back in for another, it was a 19-hour surgery, go in for another 19-hour surgery, be sedated for a couple of weeks so my body could heal. And then from there, it was going to be a long road of surgery after surgery to reconstruct as I grew into and grew out of these surgeries, unfortunately. And that was the tough part, because I just
Yeah, because
had.
they're not going to do the plates that early, right? So it's like the bones.
They did plates and screws.
Did they?
Yeah,
Right.
you just have, but
Oh, they did.
unfortunately, scar tissue is the problem. You know, you're constantly cutting ear to ear and scar tissue, and it's just harder and harder to pull away and redo things. And then as I grew older, I was becoming more susceptible to infection. So, like, I was, what would be the best way to explain it? Not accepting some of the metals that were being used and everything else. So then that caused more scarring because then they had to do different types of surgeries. Had that
Beautiful.
lady not said anything, I probably, it's most likely I would have passed from
Died.
infections. At the time, it is offered. I think more so after the fact, it was offered, that they suggest wait. The only difference from then and now, obviously, is the advancement of everything as well as the education.
Yeah.
Obviously, as a newborn child, your brain grows fast, and if everything's fused, no soft spot, then there's no room. You're likely to then have intellectual disabilities. I mean, because those are the unknowns that you don't really want to. That's what they tell you is you don't really. You're taking a chance. You're rolling the dice, and now, I mean, they always say they have the first surgery to allow the room, and then after that they say, wait, hold off until you're done growing, which is something I didn't unfortunately have the option for, but back then as a child, I always thought about it. Was like, God, I wish. Like, and at 9, when I just came to the awareness of I was done. I was just emotionally done. I was missing out on school, almost held back a couple grades. Um, I was lost in my own little world because my world was like any other child. You just want to have fun. You just
Yeah.
want to be a kid. And I
Hmm.
remember being very emotional, getting emotional now. Um, it's the joy in life. And it's kind of like where I'm at now, which is funny that my self healing journey brought me all the way back here to being alive again, being alive with life, loving every minute of it, even if it's something as silly as sitting outside in the grass and watching a bird fly by. Like, I just miss
Yeah.
those
Really.
moments that now I appreciate. Obviously, living in and out of a hospital at a young age, I got to meet a lot of great kids. And I guess for me growing up is my parents always reminded me though, like, yes, this is your story, but always remember that someone's story is going to be different and it could be
Hmm.
far worse than what you're experiencing. And there's like a plus and a minus in a conversation like that because one, then you internalize it like, okay, someone's life is a lot worse than mine, so be grateful, be thankful. But then you forget to externalize how you feel inside, um, which is something I had to relearn, the childhood traumas of I kept quiet about a lot of things and constantly being told how strong I was. You're so strong, you're so strong. But I hated that word. I disassociated from that word because for so long I kept all that pain inside, so I didn't feel so strong. And now I understand. I accept that I had every right. My feelings were valid. It's just at the
Hmm.
time, it's just what you're taught and what you're learned and conditioned to do or think. But I still look at people's journeys as everybody has one.
Hmm.
Whether it's the greatest or the worst, there's no, I can't compare. I won't compare. We all have a story and we all have valid feelings for how we feel and why we feel the things we do.
Yeah.
But in the hospital growing up, I've met so many amazing children. I remember my mom had shared a story when I was younger that at the time I didn't like those. Instead of the regular beds, they're like cages almost. They have the bars. It looks like a crib,
Yeah.
but it's very,
Yeah.
it's just, ugh. But there was a child that the parents couldn't stay. They were never really there, and just a little baby crying. And I remember I'd be in pain, but I'd ask her, like, can you go hold that baby? Like, care for them. So my mom did a lot of that while we were in and out of the hospital, is tending to other kids to make sure they were loved. Because I think I experienced more of that, and that broke me as a child because I was so blessed with the family I have that love was endless. I got through my entire life because of love. So I'm one of the lucky ones in that way. But to answer the question, Ronald McDonald House is another amazing place. So I got to meet a lot of kids with different disabilities, including Crouzons. But growing up, I never really stayed a part of that because especially when I stopped having surgeries for a while, I just disassociated having Crouzons. I just didn't want that to be my identity. I wanted people to know who I was as a person, as a soul. And that's how I've always felt. So I kind of always would shy away from the conversation because it was like, I don't want it to be about me. It's not about me. What I went through then to obviously like my self-healing journey in the past 3 years for me has been outstanding, amazing. Finding my way back to myself and understanding and self-accepting that what I went through and how I felt and what I internalized was okay because it was how I could survive then. To then obviously, you know, dig through all that, peel back the layers and understand why I did the things I did, you know, growing up. And I'm no perfect human being, that's for sure. You know, everything's not always positive and perfect and happy. But the last 3 years, it's better than it was ever before because I don't internalize anything anymore. I have a great support group, and TikTok has really allowed me to share what it's been like for me to go through my own self-healing journey. And I always make it known, though, it's like, this is my story and this is how I handle things. It may not work for you, but hey, if it does, awesome. Because finding your way back to yourself, I think, is the most powerful, beautiful gift you can give yourself. You own your parts of your story. You can't own anyone else's or what they did, but I always look at scenarios like, well, if I'm involved in any type of scenario, what's my accountability? What was my reaction? Where did, you know, so I always look at life that way now. It's just like, okay, so where were you in, you know, in this situation? How did you react or how did you feel? Did you hold it inside? Okay, well then there's your accountability of what you need to work on, because holding it inside and then projecting it onto someone later, that's, you know, your own turmoil you're going through. It's like, work through those emotions, feel them. They're there for a reason, feel them, so then you could work through the healing of them. I'm already in tears, but I'm okay with that. I mean, I know that I'm already a hypersensitive person, but the way I feel as I'm crying is in a more confident, loving, beautiful way because I'm connected with myself. I wasn't that angry until puberty. Puberty is what ruined it all. The emotions that come flooding through in 7th grade. Because it's almost like wearing rose-colored glasses as a child. Everything is rainbows, unicorns, happy, loving, just awesome. You know, minus some little things here and there that you feel and you remember. But anytime I got to be a kid, that's what I did. You know, with my siblings, with my cousins, my friends. I was lucky in grade school. My mom would, when I first started grade school, she went to school with me, sat the classroom down, talked about me having Crouzons. So I was lucky in that way growing up. Perfect? No. I mean, there was some sly remarks, but for the most part, I had a very supportive community. My parents were very involved, so everyone knew me, and again, blessed. But when you're in that bubble of happiness and blessed and lucky and supported, and then you're finally faced plucked out of that bubble with emotions and rage, and that's when the anger. High school was mostly the
Yeah.
rage, the anger, the
Yeah.
questioning, the doubts, the screamings, the doing everything opposite that you're supposed to do because you just don't know what you're doing. Questioning whether or not you want to live. I mean, I went through all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I hated it too. Like that was the hard part. Was my inner struggle was my self doubt and questioning and being so angry to the other person, where my higher self was like, but there's a bigger purpose for you, Kate, and you have a huge
Hmm.
heart, and I love that side of me. But to have that battle
Yeah. The conflict.
was it was so disheartening because it would break me because I wanted to go to the happy. I wanted to go back to that. I wanted to revert back to
Hmm.
those moments as a child where everything just seems so magical. It's like, why can't the magic be there? Why am I seeing the world in such a dark light?
Different. Wow.
And and this is why I hate labels too, and which is probably why I didn't want to ever be labeled. I have Crouzon syndrome. I have a facial difference because I wanted people to see me for my soul at such a young age, and I didn't know what that meant. And my
Okay.
soul was so big, and it was so much that so much in me that I didn't know how to verbalize or communicate. I,
Yeah.
I saw you as a soul and was like, you're smiling, you're having fun, you're in the corner dancing, and you don't care. I want to know you. I had a beautiful person reach out to me when I first started TikTok, and it was a girl a grade younger, and it threw me. Like it just made me smile because she described it. She goes, you were always with the fun crowd at the dances, but you were always having fun, even if it looked like you were by yourself. You were having fun, and that stood out to me. And she never realized, as I shared how much I don't like labels, and I never
Yeah.
liked fitting into one category, that me sharing on TikTok and being vulnerable and being authentic, and her not even realizing it, but kind of making judgments or compartmentalizing me in that box. She was just grateful and kind of apologetic, and I said, you didn't have to be, but I was more grateful that she reached out. It's like, you didn't have to, like we barely knew each other, but she's like, but I always remembered you. I remembered you for that light within you that you just wanted the world to be the same. And I was like, wow, what a huge compliment. Thank you. Well, I was always so worried about the future. I was like, well, it's not
Yeah.
here. It's not promised. It's not given. What
Yeah.
if I'm not in the moment now, then I'm missing what I could just create of my future. So why worry
Yeah.
about that? And let's heal the past. Let's heal all this, to the best of my abilities. Because I always, say like we're never truly healed, but we're a work
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
progress. And as long as I continue to self love and self care for myself first, put my needs before everyone else's, before it was everyone. But I think that was easier for me to love
Uh
than
huh.
to give myself love because I didn't know where to even begin with peeling
Yeah.
back that those layers. Take a leap for yourself. I always say like,
Yeah.
and that's part of like the last TikTok I did was like surrender to your fear because it's almost like for me if like I am afraid of something that means I need to go for it whatever that is. That's my opportunity that
I love it.
I could be the one that's challenging myself to say, stop, no, I can't do it. It's too scary. Well, I did that all my
Yeah.
life, and then it got me to a very long self-healing process.
Yeah.
But now it's just
You're
like,
catching yourself, right?
yeah, it's like, okay, this
Yeah.
this is scary, but a good scary. Some of the reconstructive surgery ended up later on, like obviously, I stopped at the age of 9 and then waited, basically. In my mind, I'm like, well, I'm going to wait till I'm done growing because I'm just tired of this. But it was also, some of it was personal. Like, I want this to be fixed. I want the illusion of thinking that the doctor was going to make me beautiful on the outside, and some of that, like, I held on to was like, but not realizing they could only do so much. Now knowing is like, oh, all that scar tissue. What a nightmare it must have been for them because in their eyes, like working with someone who barely had surgeries, it would have gone a lot smoother, a lot easier. but you don't know until you're actually in there, and then you realize, well, that took 5 hours just to cut her open because of getting through all the scar tissue, and
Yeah.
obviously you can't leave somebody on the table for very long. So there was a lot that went with it. It just was like, well, we tried this, it didn't really work out, so we could try that, and then you find out that some things just went wrong. So partially blind in my left eye is because of a surgery that the doctor just skipped over. I mean, we told them you have to put ointment in my eyes, they don't close all the way. It was a 19-hour surgery. And my eyes, actually, both of them just dried out so much that they blew up like the size of a baseball. Working with, like, obviously I came out of Children's Memorial Hospital, so even being a young adult, I was still going there because my record was so big. Like, going anywhere else, just, at that time I'd never had a surgery anywhere else, so I already had PTSD going into operating rooms so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't even do MRIs. Even as a kid, they would sedate me and I would fight it because they would try to wrap you up, and I would scream and just, at one point they sedated me so much, but my anxiety fought through it, that my mom had to like take me out, and we never even got to do the MRI because it was just that bad. My trauma of being awake, being exposed in that operating room before they put you under, it just relive it over and over and over, and that was something I had to work really hard through, because pandemic, like post-pandemic, I ended up having a herniated belly button. I went into the ER all by myself because no one could go, and that was my first experience ever out of all the surgeries I've had where I was alone, and so my anxiety was through the roof, and
Mm-hmm.
I had lost it, and I went in for a CAT scan, and then as soon as they were coming back, they were literally having me sign something and rushing me. They're like, "We need to get you to the ER or surgery now." I was like, "What?" They're like, "It's life or death," and I'm like, "What?" Like, so like you're trying to process, and you can't. And so then I have an anesthesiologist who was working off of ego, who's basically like, I'm panicking and I'm telling her, like, I do not want to be awake when you wheel me in there, just sedate me enough. But my communication was horrible at the time. That's my ownership, that's my accountability. I was just
Yeah.
too much in panic. And she, on the other hand, was yelling at me and telling me, "Do you want to die?" And I'm like, in your mind, you're thinking, "Listen, lady, I got some words for you right now, but right now I just need you to go watch Patch Adams and get your heart back in place and get your compassion,"
Whoa.
because and I told her that. I just was like, "Remove yourself from me." So then this other beautiful doctor came along, and the nurse came along. She goes, "Everyone, just leave the room. Give her 5 minutes right now." A nurse, that's why I love nurses. They're not ego, they're all heart. They're all loving,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful souls. So she cleared the room. She's like, "What do you need?" And I'm like, "A hug." I literally was crying. I'm like, "I just need a hug. Can I have a hug?" And so she did. She hugged me. And then the doctor
Oh, that's
came over,
beautiful.
and he was like, "Tell me about your anxiety. Like, what do you remember? Because you keep saying you remember even when you wake up, and I know you're not supposed to remember any of that." And I told him, I was like, I go, it's trauma. I go, I can't control the childhood trauma I'm carrying right now. I know it's something I have to work through. So I I know that I'm about to be wheeled away, and that's it. I don't remember a lick. I don't remember anything. I just remember being put in my room, and he comes in. He goes, "Do you remember anything?" I'm like, "Oh, I love you." That's all I can tell him. I'm like, "What did you give me?" He goes, "Well, I factored in your anxiety and gave you like a triple dose." He goes,
Yeah.
"That's all that anybody should really listen to."
Yeah, and accommodation. So if they
He's
if
like,
they,
"I heard you through your panic and your screams." I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I'm 41 years old and screaming." He was like, "Because that's not how I want to react." He goes, "I got it. The fear in your eyes, like you could just feel it." He goes, "I listened."
yeah.
He goes, "Now that other lady, she only lasted about 15 minutes. She couldn't even intubate me, so she had to leave." I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I said, He goes, "But what you told her was pretty impressive." Like, I go, I guess even in my panic moment, I have jokes, but it was just, I didn't want to scream back at her as much as I probably was.
Yeah.
I was like, all I could think about was that movie, Patch Adams. Like, find your soul, woman. Find your heart, because you're speaking, you're threatening me while I'm traumatized.
In my worst space. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for not allowing me to feel safe.
Yeah. My goodness. Well, I
But
just want
I
to give you a
completely
big
went off
hug.
tangent
That
though.
just breaks
The
my heart.
second part of your question, right, was Crouzons. I found out high school, like seventh and eighth grade through high school, that I had Crouzons too, because that was kind of rare too. But my joints, so my joints in my elbows and my joints in my ankles were fused together, but my elbows were different. So like I could hold my palms out, but then my elbows are in. So like I learned through softball that I was having a lot of pain because I was learning to throw the softball differently. And then softball also told me a lot about my ankles. Like I was a catcher, but I was always on my ankles, but they hurt. But my ankles couldn't go left or right. They could only go up and down. But I played basketball too, and I was a runner. So I was forcing the bone to just press on bone to, pivot, turn, do all these
Yeah.
things. And I'd just be there in dire pain. And if I sat down and let my ankles breathe and kind of, well, I was short. I still am. But I'd sit on the chair and my ankles would be dangling, not touching the ground. And all that time allowed them to swell up. And so, like, I would jump to the ground and I'd fall right down because of all the pressure and pain. So that's when in seventh grade we went and found out that my ankles were fused together. So they took fat tissue from my booty, which I didn't have one, I still don't. And we kept telling, like, again, these are the little things, though, that we were telling them, like, you might want to find, like my stomach might be a little bit more cushiony. And they don't
Yeah.
listen, so they create these scars that need not have to be. And they drilled the holes, put like fat and muscle in between it. And they asked me, do you want to be in crutches for a very long time, I think it was like 6 months to a year, or do you want to be in a wheelchair for 6 months? And we were like, wheelchair. I mean, seventh grade, you just want to be a little young teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I had fun with it. My friends had fun with it. They would kick me out of the wheelchair and they would just go wheeling around, and my poor mother would have to come every day and drag my wheelchair down a flight of stairs just so I could go to the bathroom and go home. And we did it, but it was a different experience. I thought it was kind of cool
So
though.
you haven't had to have like surgeries on other parts of your body where it's fused, have you?
No, I mean
Yeah.
I just
Okay.
deal with the pain, or I've learned to just move my body differently. I guess I don't think it would have been as many surgeries. I think it would have gone a lot smoother. Um, the difference again, like with the halos, they still have to have a couple because of the growth. They have to. I think
Yeah.
it's every few years, but I'm not 100% certain. They put the halo back on, and stretch it out a couple centimeters and allow the skull and the brain to grow, the bones to
Okay.
grow through.
So it would have been there could have been some of it. It could have been a different
Facial, yeah,
procedure, things
my
like that.
my facial features and scar and everything would be minimal. I mean,
Okay.
I would personally believe that you would be looking at something so different. But even with all these surgeries, every single time I had a
Yeah.
surgery, I didn't like what I saw, but I got so comfortable. And then it would be another surgery, and I had to get used to a whole new face that I didn't
Yeah.
recognize. And that was a lot of the trauma too. It's just
Yeah, I mean
constantly
that
being
really helps me to
disassociated.
understand because sometimes if they didn't know any of this, and people that genuinely want to understand, just so that you understand your story more and they have a compassion about it, they you know is it all just because of what's happening genetically of what's going on, like, or was there an accident? Like sometimes people,
Yeah.
I
They're afraid to ask, or they
yeah.
they don't know how to ask. I mean, and I have a
Yeah,
friend
so
on
it
here
sounds like
that
it's a
we.
combination.
Mhm.
It was the accident and that kind of started things, but I also have a condition, and so that obviously my story and what I would have had to have gone through would have been different. So it's not like, as you're making sense of what I'm living with, that it's just because of what I got introduced genetically. You had
Mhm.
man that has, in an effort to try to make things better, made things worse, right? And
Mhm.
that's a whole other topic that we could get into of how sometimes even good people in their efforts to try to make something better can make things worse.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah, that's why I think I probably never really associated having Crouzon because I was like, the story just goes and goes, And like
Yeah,
I said, though, everyone has a story, so and their story
yeah,
is justified as just as beautiful and just as painful, etc. But it's just like where do you begin? Like, I can't. It took so long for me to grow out of that what if stage of fantasizing, becoming lost in the illusions of fantasy of like, what if my life was like this? It's like, oh, okay, like, and that's where I was able to embrace my journey and love it because I was given this, and not to say that it was a gift, and not to say it was easy, but I was given this life, and along the way I had to learn and I had to grow and I had to heal for myself. And for me now, being where I'm at with the self love and the appreciation, the gratitude is like I am grateful for the journey. As many times as I scream to God and everything, I hate this, I hate myself, I hate life. If I can go from hate to love, then I'll take this journey over and over again. My biggest thing is for me, do the mirror work. Know that you are love, you're light, you're worthy of everything. And don't ever give up on yourself. And don't get lost in the illusions or the fantasies of the what ifs. And just stay true to yourself, stay focused on yourself, and believe in yourself. And love yourself to the best of your ability. And don't rely on anyone else loving you. It's a gift when people love you, but it's an even bigger gift when you can love yourself for who you are.
we
Yeah.
just love you so much,
Thank
and
you. And I
Nell gives
love
her
you
loves as
guys
well.
too. And tell Nell hello.
I will. I will. Okay, thanks. Have a good day.
Bye.